Good evening and welcome to Views with Joyce Waddell. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our topic for tonight is student leadership. We're talking with Naya, and she is the president of more than 25,000 students at the University of North Carolina here in Charlotte. She grew up in Charlotte. She is providing leadership for all of those students as she is president of the student body. She's going to talk about what leadership means and how she leads and the success stories that she experienced in her leadership role and how she is doing those things that she dreamed of doing, how they can make a difference in the lives of students and the lives of this community. UNC Charlotte is one of the largest university systems in North Carolina, and she leads. We're proud of her experience and what she's able to do. Welcome, Naya.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Naya, as leader of the student body at UNC Charlotte, you've had a lot of things that you've had to deal with. You've had a lot of successes. So what has that been like?
Me and my vice president, Chandler, decided to run our campaign early in
As a team.
Yeah, early in the winters. So we decided on a platform what we thought were key issues that the student body were concerned with, and we just went with it. I think a lot of being a student leader and the experiences that you get with it are making sure that you're putting your best face forward when you're interacting with students. While we were campaigning, a lot of the things we were doing were asking students questions, their concerns, and making sure those were things that we could constantly refer back to make sure that we were amplifying student voice on campus.
So you ran as a team. Did your entire, I know the entire cabinet cannot run as a team.
Yeah.
President and vice president ran as a team.
Yes.
Were there others who ran in this team with you? Because the team experience certainly makes a difference because you're not going solo.
Yeah.
You're going with a support group. You're going with someone who's seeking the same thing that you are.
Yeah. So for our student government here at UNC Charlotte, you run on a ticket. So you apply on one application, president and vice president. And you also can have a campaign committee, so people who assist you with your campaign. So we also have some of our fellow students who helped us with that process. And the election span takes over 4 weeks.
That's a short window, but
yes,
that's long enough. So someone has to finance that campaign for you. You have to have money. You can't just do it because for the love of it, can you?
It actually depends on what you choose to do. So at UNC Charlotte, you can spend up to $500 in your student government campaign, but some students opt to not spend any money, or they'll spend the amount that you're allotted. It just depends on what you think you need to do to get your voice heard on campus.
Okay, so what was the thing that you did different from, you had opponents, didn't you?
Yes.
Just one?
Mm-hmm.
So what did the thing that you did different from your opponent that caused you to get elected?
I think that me and Chandler ran a really strong campaign, and we also planned everything really thoroughly before we started our campaign. We had like 3 or 4 brainstorming meetings where we were just listing like every social media post we'd be making, all the organizations on campus we would be talking to, all the events that we would be hosting, to make sure that we were covering as many facets of the student body as possible, making sure that we were talking to Greek life and commuter students and students in interest organizations, because a lot of what happens during campaigning is just meeting as many people as you can and reminding them when voting online is, so that they're like actively engaged and know when to participate.
Also, it was online voting. You didn't have
Yes.
They didn't have to line up someplace and
No, they didn't.
go and cast a ballot. So
Yeah.
that's quite different.
Mm-hmm.
So the students had to, and it was every student eligible to vote?
So for our positions, if you're an undergraduate student at UNC Charlotte, you can vote, and you would vote at vote.uncc.edu on any electronic device. And the one cool thing that our student government did is, for students who didn't know voting was happening, we had polling stations in the unions, just like little laptops that said like vote for student government elections, and students can walk up and vote if they didn't realize that voting was happening during that time.
So they didn't have to register and be vetted to make sure that they were eligible. Once they put in the necessary information, they knew that they were eligible
Yeah.
and could vote. So what is the biggest difference, looking at what you campaign on, your platform, what you said you were going to do? You've already been in office, haven't you?
Yes.
So what difference have you made?
So I ran on the platform Strike Gold, and the 3 components of that platform were Strike Gold for transparency, Strike Gold for student voice, and Strike Gold for creating a legacy. And we created those points of our platforms based on what student concerns were at UNC Charlotte and how we could best address them. I started serving in this capacity in April, so now it's July, and a lot of the work that I've been doing over summer is interacting with incoming freshmen by going to some of the orientation sessions just to tell freshmen what student government does and how we advocate on their behalf. I've also been talking with the Board of Trustees here at UNC Charlotte, just making sure that students are well informed on what their role is and what they do specifically. And I've been staying engaged with our student government at UNC Charlotte because they're the main points of contact and the liaisons for the entire campus community. So just doing my part over summer and making sure that I'm communicating with the people who it's necessary to communicate with so they know the work that I've been doing.
Well, you were doing excellent work, phenomenal work. Is there any compensation at all for all of the things that you do?
Yes.
And the time commitment that's involved? Because that seems like a lot. You're on the student government, and not only that, you're on the trustee board.
Yes, there is compensation for my position and other positions in the executive branch and all of the branches in student government, and it's based on what your leadership position is.
So it's not just free.
Yeah, no.
It's volunteer and get some money.
Yeah, and it also depends on what your position is. So like the higher up your position is in student government, the more likely you are to be compensated for your work.
Okay. Now, some of the things, the issues, you said you've accomplished some things that you said you were going to accomplish when you ran, the commitments that you made to people. So they can see that you've done what you said you were going to do. Mm-hmm. You're doing what you said you're going to do. Now, as you go forward, school starts in August. What are the challenges that you see in your role and the difference that you can make?
So one thing that me and Chandler were keenly aware of is that in this position in the past, a lot of students didn't necessarily know exactly what we were doing, like what exactly do I do as student body president. So one thing that me and him sat down and did was we've been creating a Google document, like a spreadsheet of all the activities that we've been going to, how long they took, and who we were speaking to. And we're making that document open to the public so students can really see what are all the things that we accomplished. And I think some of the challenges that I'm going to face in the upcoming school year are just making sure that I'm balancing my coursework with the responsibilities and duties I have in this role. But I know that I have a really great executive cabinet and a really great support team that will help me throughout this. And I've already delegated personal time for myself to focus on myself and my mental health, and time allotted in my schedule to make sure that I'm having time to achieve the commitments that I've signed myself up for.
You know, UNC Charlotte is often thought to be a school within a school. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that? You have the Black Student Union. Do you still have that?
Yes.
Okay. And they have a president as well. Mm-hmm. So you have 2 separate student unions. Is that the only one of ethnicity other than the basic one?
UNC Charlotte actually has 465 student organizations on campus.
I'm talking about the student union that use the Black Student Union. How do they interact with? They got 460 organizations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's basically, when I say within, their purpose was to help address the needs of African American students, mm-hmm. because they felt that they were not being heard. You, as an African American president, what difference are you able to make, and how are you able to help them to know that it's inclusive?
Well, UNC Charlotte now has policies in place to make sure those specific interest groups and races are addressed and have voices at the table. Like, a member of the Black Student Union actually sits on the tuition and fees board at our school, and they're an active part of the process along with other departments on our campus, because we do want to make sure that we're well represented, because we are an incredibly diverse and inclusive school. So I think now it's just making sure that all of these organizations are connected and getting the resources that they need to accomplish the task that they want to do. And at UNC Charlotte, the Student Government Association actually provides funding for student orgs. So if BSU ever needed funding for an event they wanted to host or a program that they wanted to do for the betterment of the student bodies, the Student Government Association can help them with that.
Okay. Now you also have some of the other things. You know, when I came out to UNCC, it only had 3 main buildings. And those 3 main buildings were there for a long time. It was a long time before UNC Charlotte started really growing and taking off to be the urban institution that it is now. A long time. And then once it started growing, it was, you know, like nonstop. So you have more than 30,000 students enrolled there now, don't you?
And we have about 20,000 undergraduate students. And the other students are either graduate students or students who aren't necessarily going towards a degree, like non-degree seeking students who just want to take classes for their own benefit.
Now, so what difference have you been able to make when it comes to African American students who are feeling disenfranchised? You had recently tried to grow the enrollment of African American students. Are you still at about 20%?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the largest percentages in North Carolina. UNC Charlotte actually at one point was teaching more African American students than any other school in the UNC system. So I think that student voices for African American students are being well represented, and there are an array of organizations and resources on campus specifically to address those needs for those students. I was actually involved in a program called Students Advising Freshman Excellence that was created to mentor students who are underrepresented on campus. So I think UNC Charlotte does acknowledge the gap that is there, and they're taking strides and steps to make sure that those groups are acknowledged on campus.
Okay, so now what about this 20%? Is it still there? Is it still the 20% African American student?
It fluctuates a little bit every single year, but we've held steady about 20% for a while now.
And is it growing? You said it fluctuates, it gets lower sometimes, but it has not gotten any higher than that.
The only reason that it gets lower is because UNC Charlotte just started doing spring acceptances, so students can either opt to be accepted in the fall semester or start in the spring. So a lot of the students who transfer in or freshmen who start in the spring contribute to that number, but the number always comes out at the very end of the academic year.
And you have 20,000 undergrad students, you said, and those are the ones that you represent. And you have a lot, that's a large cabinet, the people that you meet with, and you meet once a month, is that correct?
No, the executive branch actually meets once a week.
That often? That's very often. So how do you balance your studies if you meeting once a week? That's a lot. To take care of concerns or to listen to your constituent groups of these 450 organizations that you represent.
So one thing that I made a point to do is to allot time specifically in my schedule for student concerns. I actually have office hours where I'll sit in my office for 2 hours a day every single day. And if students want to come speak to me, if they just want to walk by, if they have a concern that they want to meet with me face to face, they have that opportunity, because a lot of students know that we're a resource. They just don't necessarily know how they can utilize the Student Government Association and myself as a resource. So making sure that I'm available to students is key to me. So along with my office hours, I also schedule in my schedule way ahead of time that, oh, I have a 2-hour exec meeting this Thursday. I need to speak to the Student Senate for 30 minutes on this Wednesday. Just making sure that I'm actively engaged with myself and making sure that I'm being a voice for the students and actively participating in a way that they know I'm available to them and they know how to contact me.
Audience, we're continuing to talk with Nia as we talk about her role as the student body president at the University of North Carolina here in Charlotte. She grew up in Charlotte and was educated in the public schools in Charlotte. She is doing a phenomenal job as the president and leading that student body of more than 20,000 undergraduate students. She's making a difference in what she's doing. And we're talking about just the multifacety of programs and student organizations that she works with to help them to grow, help them to meet the needs that they see, and answer the questions that are so vitally important in student life. She's going to share with us some challenges. She's going to share with us some things that, as she talks to high school students and work in the community, that will be beneficial to them as she leads, and how her leadership can make a difference in what they will experience. We're going to take a short break for right now. and then we're going to come back right back. Don't go away. Just share with me anything that you want to share that we haven't talked about.
But you gotta stay strong.
Ooh, I know right now it's impossible to see, but God's gonna work things out if you just believe. But remember this one thing, while you're going through, if God delivered Daniel, guess what? He'll do the same for you, yeah. Now be encouraged. No matter what's going on, He'll make it all right, yeah. Troubles don't last always. These trials are just a test of your faith. So stand strong, dry your weeping eyes, 'cause joy comes in the morning, and everything's gonna be all right. You've gotta be encouraged. So be encouraged. No matter what's going on, He'll make it all right, yeah. That's all you've gotta do is, oh, He will. He'll make it all right, yeah. Now break it down. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta say. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do is be encouraged. Yes, sir.
Artists, we're continuing to talk with Naya. She's president of the University of North Carolina in Charlotte student body. She's making a difference, and before we left, she was going to share some examples of what leads to her success and how students who want to matriculate and be successful in college, even adults who come back, what that looks like and how that can make a difference. Naya, we've talked about your successful experiences and what related to them.
So I think one of the things that's contributed to my success here at UNC Charlotte and throughout my education is just the support system that I have coming from my family and friends. I think a lot of the time you can get stuck in your head if you overanalyze the things that you're doing and with just the coursework that you have. So making sure that you have great people around you who are constantly encouraging you and motivating you is really important. And I would also say that making sure that I'm keeping my eye on the prize is important too. I constantly remind myself of what my major goal is, what's my end game, and what I'm going to be doing after this is all over. That keeps me motivated as well.
Now, when you graduated high school, when you graduated Mallet Creek, were you the top valedictorian of your class?
No, I wasn't, but I was in the top 10% of my high school graduating class.
Okay. So you were already focused in school and doing what you were supposed to do. Were you salutatorian?
No, I wasn't.
But you were a good student.
Yes, I was.
And you were making a difference. So as you focus now in your role, that's unusual. You start in April, and the school year begins in August.
Yeah.
So you start in your role before school year's out.
Yes, I do. So that's when we have the transition from the old student body president and their cabinet to the next one. So my role starts in April because that's when we the finances for the university end in May, and also I get sworn into the Board of Trustees in April as well. So even though the academic school year is wrapping up, there's still tons of things happening on campus that I have to be a part of and engaged with, and a lot of the committees that meet during the school year also meet over summer. So I still stay busy trying to make sure that I'm engaging with students.
Now, evidently you would have something to say to the student body, because there'll be new students coming in.
Yes.
There are always new students coming in, and something you'll be talking to them and giving them directions about your platform, your expectations, and how the student government works. And you're already in leadership, so what do you expect to do next? What's next steps?
So right now for the rest of the school year, we have tons of events planned for the Student Government Association. One thing that students mentioned while we were running is they felt like SGA didn't have as large of a presence on campus as they should. So we try to address that situation by hosting monthly events. And I will also be speaking at convocation to incoming freshmen and the incoming class just to tell them a little bit about my experience and how they could be a Noble Niner here at UNC Charlotte. And after I graduate in May, I either plan on going to grad school or teaching through Teach for America.
Do you have your own parking space what are the perks? Do you have your own parking space at UNCC?
Yeah.
Okay. You must have some other things that come with the territory that makes it inviting.
I get compensation for my position through a monthly stipend.
You get free meals in the cafeteria and stuff like that?
No, I do not, but I get a parking space because of my Board of Trustees position, and I also get an office on campus to meet with students.
Okay. Now, you plan next to go to law school. Have you started already applying to the various law schools? Law school or to teach with Teach of America?
Yeah, so law school applications actually open in September. So right now I'm studying to take the law school admissions exam. And for Teach for America, I'm preparing my application just to see what all my options are after undergrad, whether I want to go to continue with higher ed or if I want to go into the workforce.
Those are two big differences.
Yeah.
Two very vast and great differences. Going out to work and either going out to continuing education. So you've looked at some of the top law schools, I'm sure, in the state. I've talked with some of the other students, recent grads, and they talked about a lot of student loans. Do you see that as an obstacle to or a challenge to any of the students that you interact with?
I think there's always going to be some obstacles when you're dealing with higher education, and I could see why finances is one of them, but I have a passion for education and I know that I want to continue with it, so I'm just letting that not affect me and my goals and where I'm choosing to apply to and what schools that I'm looking at, because law school or grad school, because I'm also considering a master's in public policy, the price is always going to be expensive, but I know that the experience and the things that I'll learn there will be worth it in the long run.
So when these students talk about the expense, in fact, one was here earlier and talking about $400 a month, which I thought was unheard of, for paying back student loans. And you work with students every day, and I know that finance is a contributing factor for education. And many students often leave school because financially they can't support what's necessary when it comes to tuition and fees. So what are some of the things that you see that would keep that from being an obstacle or a challenge?
So I know that a lot of students have issues and concerns when it comes to fees because college is expensive, and I think that it really depends on what the student wants and what their program of study is, because some programs of study are longer and some are shorter and some are more expensive and some are more time consuming. It really depends on what the student focus is and what their needs are, and we have multiple departments on campus that address those concerns on how to finance for school, and we also have departments on campus to make sure that students are still mentally engaged engaged and feeling okay and have that necessary support, because college can be a stressful time. So we have an amazing counseling center on campus. We have amazing teachers and professors and staff members that will help and work with students if need be. So I know that UNC Charlotte's just a great place, and it's developing very well. So I hope that all students who have those concerns can either reach out for help or reach to me for help, because I'd love to assist them.
You can help them with you could have helped this person who paying for $100 a month now that he's working for that student.
No, but I could have led them in the right direction to who to talk to about payment plans on campus and making sure that they're able to fund throughout their college journey.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges that come to you when your Students Government Association meets? I know there was a big controversy on campus. They took down that tower that had been there for so long. And there are other things. So what's some of the biggest challenges that you expect to be dealing with, or that you have already dealt with?
I think a lot of what happens at UNC Charlotte with student concerns is students don't know who to turn to with their issue. So a lot of students turn to social media because they know their voice will be heard there. And hopefully we're able to bridge the gap where students know to either come to SGA for a concern, to go to a different part of campus for a concern, so they're directly getting the answers for their questions that they need. Because I think a lot of students don't understand necessarily the work that SGA does on their behalf. So when students have concerns about dining services, we're meeting with dining services to make sure that student input is involved when they're deciding on contracts. Or if students have issues with parking or just transportation on campus, allotting more options for them, like having the light rail or having multiple buses on campus or having lot-only passes, are all issues that SGA has put to the forefront on behalf of the student body. So I think a lot just has to do with miscommunication and not understanding the role that we have within SGA and how we advocate on behalf of students. And in my position, I'm hoping to bridge that gap.
From what I'm hearing and reading, transportation, parking are challenges. But now I know you're looking at the big hotel that should be at some point will be in your board of trustees. You were dealing with this. Hotel should be on Keys Drive, Jane Keys. That will be serving much of the university visitors. So those are two things that's coming up. Are you involved in it with those?
Right now, they're trying to gauge student interest, and that has been a topic of discussion. So I'm really excited to look forward to working with the Board of Trustees and with the student body on making sure that we're making the best informed decisions we can for them.
Okay. So how will this hotel work when it comes to, I know you're advocating for that. How will that work in conjunction with what you're doing with campus?
Well, those processes are still being finalized right now, and we're discussing our options regarding that in the Board of Trustees. So I'm hoping to learn more about it throughout the school year, and I'm very excited for the work that the Student Government Association is going to be doing alongside that.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For what you do each and every day for the
course.
student and for student life to make things better. You're doing a phenomenal job, and we're very proud of your progress.
Thank
Not that I've been so good, don't always live right. He's always understood, he always forgives me.